Shalom. Call halal Yahweh Bashim Abishai Bahashim Rakaha Kodash. Double honors unto the apostles, double honors unto the elder bishops, salutations to all my fellow laborers doing this work in truth and sincerity, risking their lives and their freedom to do so now more so than ever. To the scattered elect that are scattered around the four corners of the earth, that be like unto the speckled bird, the Israelite foreigners among the heathens that look like the heathens. And to the Akwaf that are listening and learning, to you, I say Shalom. This is your brother Malcolm from the branch of the Great Millstone here in Chicago, coming at you with another lesson in truth. And what you're looking at before you is the book, The History of the Jewish People. And I've been reading through this book. I'm probably about a third of the way into it. And I really dived into it last night and just didn't stop, when the Shabbat changed. And got a lot of good info. And this was the question I pose is that why is it that these Jewish people, people like, what was this other book I got in front of me, like Charles Weisman, all right, he's a Jewish scholar, all right. This book is the Anthology of Racial Issues by Charles Weisman. This guy is also the author of Who is Esau Edom? So Charles, Weisman, Arthur Koestler, and this professor at the Israeli University, Shlomo Sand, all of them are saying the same thing. All right, and yet, they're being ignored, and the things that they're saying, they're not coming off, with their whole think and feel. They're going back in history, back in time, and showing you the receipts and evidences that these people over in the land of Israel clearly are not the people that they're claiming to be. But yet, and the gig is up, but yet they continue to hold on this lie, which only makes every day that goes by, it makes them look worse and worse. The perpetual anger and hatred that will come, that there's not, if it's not there now already, when they're forced to admit it, because a lot of people around the world, a good portion of the people of the world know this, right, including many white people. Okay, and I'll tell you why. Because it's not that these people have free will. These authors, that go up, that set out to make these books. The thing is that the Lord directs their goings. Man, a man's going is not of his own; is of the Lord's, man. And that's why they have that Psalm 64 in one spirit to just telling themselves. So let's grab that, because there's a scripture which I can't think of. Someone can put on a comic board. That says how the Lord speaks to the man in his, or to the person, a man in their dream. All right, but this is Psalm 64 and 8. And it says, so they shall make their own tongue to fall upon themselves. All that see them shall flee away. So, so the Lord is speaking to these people in their sleep, in their dreams, and putting these notions in their head to go and write these books and give out all this information that's very condemning to them today. All right, it really is, because we're living in a time where Second Thessalonians. Let's grab Second Thessalonians. And I'm going to start at verse 7. I could just start at verse 1. All right. But I'm going to start at verse 7. It says, for the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. And then shall the wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. So these people are being consumed by the Israelite prophets. All right. And he even in his book mentions the black Hebrew Israelites of the Americas. And I'm going to read, a couple different pages in this book. I'm going to, go into this book a lot. But I'm going to start, let me see. go back and do a lesson on that later. But I'm going to start at chapter 1, the making of nations, sovereignty, and equality. All right. So that's the page that I'm on in this book. It's page 23. All right. And it's called Making of the Nations, Sovereignty and Equality. All right. And it reads, no nation possesses an ethnic base naturally, but as social formations are nationalized, populations included within them, divided up among them or dominated by them, are ethnicized. That is represented in the past or in the future as if they formed a natural community. All right, and that was by Etienne Balibar, some French guy. The nation form of history and ideology. Nationalism was the form in which democracy appeared in the world, contained in the idea of a nation as a butterfly in a cocoon. And that was written by Leah Greenfield, Nationalism, 5 Roads to Modernity. All right. It says thinkers and scholars have struggled for hundreds of years with the issue of nationalism, but have not come up with an unbiased, universally accepted definition. A widely accepted description will probably be achieved only after the age of the nation has ended. When Minerva's owl takes flight and we see the past of the overreaching collective identity that so powerfully shapes modern culture. All right. So culture, the Bible gave you the cultures, and these people don't acknowledge the cultures that are written in the Bible. All right. Why? Because if you start all the nations can be identified in Genesis, the 10th chapter. All right. And the one nation that the Lord chose. All right. As a matter of fact, let's give you an example. Let's go to Genesis. Let's go to Genesis, 25th chapter. And I'm going to read verses 20 through 25. And it reads, and the children struggled together within her. And she said, if it be so, why am I thus? And she went to inquire of Yahweh. Well, she went to the prophet. All right, that's who told her what was going on. Right? And Yahweh said unto her, 2 nations, all right, two different races of people are in thy womb. 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels, and one people shall be stronger than the other, and the elder shall serve the younger. So whichever one came out first would serve the younger. And the one that came out first is the one that's ruling the world right now, which was his temporary blessing. All right, he got dominion over this world into the end of the age. And the problem is for him is that we're at the end of the age, and he's desperately trying to hold on to his temporary blessing. All right. It's kind of like being in a relationship with a woman. She was never yours. It was just your turn. Eventually, she will lose interest or go with someone else or whatever happens. All right. But your time is up, and you have to understand their time is up. Okay. So reading on, it says, European languages use the term nation. This is at the bottom paragraph on page 23. European languages use the term nation, which derived from the late Latin natio until the 20th century. Their term denoted mainly human groups of various sizes with internal connections. For example, and in ancient Rome, it is commonly referred to as aliens as well as to species of animals. In the Middle Ages, it could denote groups of students who came from afar. In England, at the start of the modern era, it denoted aristocratic strata. Now and then is used to reference to populations of common origin. All right? So meaning the Israelite foreigners are also referred to as aliens. Okay, that's what he's trying to hint at. I had to read it a couple times before I got it. Okay, it says, and then it says, Some of the now and then it was used to reference to populations of common origin, sometimes a group speaking particular language. The term was used to diverse ways throughout the 19th century, and practice significance remains a subject of controversy to this day. All right, and and then Esau Edom created all these categories. You just like how the census enumerators took a lot of Native Americans, the darker complected ones, all right, and relabeled them or as black, as so and they were categorized as black people. So you have a lot of so-called black people that they would call African Americans in the Americas who are actually so-called Native Indians. They're native to the Americas. All right. That's just a fact. And so, and then Esau liked to rename and change everything to fit him. Let's get a scripture to substantiate what I just said. Let's go to Psalms 49 and 11. And it reads, their inward thought is that their houses shall continue forever, and their dwelling places to all generations. They call their lands after their own names. So when you go and you look on a job application today, all right, or any sort of application where it puts in race, they give you all these categories that they've come up with, that they've decided, all the Pacific Islanders didn't call themselves Pacific Islanders. Hawaiians didn't call themselves Hawaiians. Those were Japhetic people. Those are the labels that were placed upon them. All right. And for those you might be new, hearing that for the first time, Japhet there's not two sets of white people. You don't have white Edomites and then white Japhetic people. That's, that would be a huge confusion because the people coming from Europe, where Togomar and Gomar, or Asia actually, they were not Japhetic. Japhet was in those lands, but Japhet got driven out of those lands by Alexander of Macedon. Alexander, who the world calls Alexander the Great. And Alexander the Great was an Edomite. You can trace his lineage back to Esau, Edom, straight back to Amalek. Okay? And the Lord said he'd have war with Amalek from generation to generation. So just to throw that out there. So page 24, and it says, the great French historian Marc Bloch said that to great despair of historians, men fail to change their vocabulary every time they change their customs. We might add that the source of anachronism in historical graphical research, though not the only one, is human laziness. No, it's a little bit more than human laziness. It's arrogance and lies, all right, which naturally affects the creation of terminology. Many words that have come down to us from the past and in different guise. I'm going to jump down. People, race, ethnos, and nation. That's at the bottom of the paragraph. Page 24. The first paragraph. Second paragraph, Salakia. Country and homeland have over the course of history been given countless meanings at times. Contradictory at times, complementary, always problematic. The term nation translated into modern Hebrew as Leom or Irma, or Irma, both words derived, like so many others, from a rich biblical lexicon. But before taking the discussion to crucial national issue, trying to define nation, which still very reluctantly submits to an unequivocal definition, we should stop to consider two other problems. The concept that tripping up the clumsy feet of professional scholars. All right, lexicon, people and ethnos. Almost all history books published in Israel use the word am for people. All right, so people, am is what they call people, as a synonym for Leom, a nation. So they replaced it. All right, it says am is also a biblical word, the Hebrew equivalent of a Russian Narad, the German Volk, the French people, the English people, but in modern Israeli Hebrew, the word am does not have a direct association with the word people. in a sense. All right. So it says, it's like the creation of the word Jew and its attachment to the, and this is me speaking, all right, like the creation of the word Jew and its attachment to the Bible, all right, and you can see Benjamin Friedman's book, Facts Are Facts, on page 18. It tells you that in 1775 they created the word Jew. So what they do is it's basically it's newspeak. They will attach words and give words new meanings to a certain demographic or a certain people when it really had no attachment at all. And then over time, over the decades, over the scores of decades, or then over the centuries, it just becomes fact. But when you go and trace it back, you find out that it's not. Just like knowing that the word letter J was made up, right? And so when Shlomo Sand says an invention of the Jewish people, that is exactly what they are. The title is invented because they're Edomites, they're converts, all right? And he kind of admits that later on in the book, all right? Page 25, it says, the word Am, which is translated as people, appears frequently in the Old Testament with the variety of meanings. It can mean clan, or actually mean tribe. It didn't really. The Bible really never talked about clans. All right. It says, or throng gathered in a city center, or even a fighting force. For example, Joshua rose and all the people. See, because it doesn't read that way. That's something. That's a Hebrew Yiddish thing. He's going to talk about that too. Of the word to go up against. All right. Joshua 8:3. And the people of the land, and then it has that Am in parentheses, made Josiah his son king in his stead. 2 Chronicles 33:25. It could also indicate the holy community, namely the people of Israel chosen by God, for example. All right, for thou art a holy people, and then they got Am there for people, unto the Lord thy power. All right, and the Lord thy power have chosen thee to be a special people. They have Am there again, unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth. That's Deuteronomy 7:6. All right, but here's the problem. Modern Jewry can't make this claim because they're mostly made up of converts. So how could they be the Am? All right, outside of the Sephardic Jews, which some of them actually do go back to the tribes of Israel, connected to the land. All right, but the Israelis, and all those ones that came over from Poland and Germany, they're converts from the Khazars. And as I said, the three authors that I spoke of, they all talk about it. Okay. Page 26, and then I'm gonna stop there. I'm gonna finish page 26, and we'll save the next lesson for 27 and onward. All right. But here it says on page 26, it says the principal concern was to ensure they had enough power to keep people afraid. The sovereign had to secure the loyalty of the state's administration in order to preserve the continuity and stability of the government. But the peasants were required simply to pass along the surplus agricultural products and sometimes provide monarchy and nobility with soldiers. Taxes were, of course, collected by force, or any rate by its constant implicit threat rather than the persuasion of efforts of consensus. Nevertheless, it must not be forgotten that the existence of this power also gave the value producers of food, physical security, and added value granted to them by the presence of this authority, which just basically put themselves in authority over you and named themselves as a people. All right. And let me give you an example of that in the Bible. And this is what Esau does. All right. And this is what he has done. And Shlomo Sand is telling you all this. He's just not telling you directly as I am. He's using fancy speech to do it. But after all, he is a professor. All right. So this is First Maccabees. I'm gonna start at verse 7 through like 9. First Maccabees 1, 7 through 9. And it reads, So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died, and his servant bare ruled everyone in his place. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. And basically, and that they continued to do that throughout Asia, throughout North Africa, throughout Europe, and and basically up all the way up until this day. All right, they're claiming to be people that they are not. Okay, because the Romans were warring with the Edomites alongside the Israelites, but when the Romans were Edomites as well. All right, or they were calling them Idumeans, which is the Greek way of saying Edom. All right, but the second paragraph, page 26, and it reads, the hold on, Salakia. That's my armor bearer. Let me turn this sound off. All right, Salakia. I have to give him an answer. Okay. Second paragraph. The state apparatus occupied in collecting taxes and recruiting troops subsisted mainly thanks to the integrated interests of the upper strata, meaning upper class people, the nobility and the politically powerful, to continue and relative stability of this apparatus, not only the crowning of a sovereign, but the invention of dynastic monarchies, like the people over there call themselves a royal family, per example. All right, when they're not the royal family at all, they married into that family because the royal family were actually melanated. All right, it says had already been achieved by means of certain ideological measures. The religious cults that flourished around the centers of government reinforced the loyalty of the upper levels of the hierarchy throughout the unearthly legitimation. So they legitimized themselves through force. All right, which makes me think of let me grab this last scripture and then we're gonna save this for the next lesson out of this book. But that's Wisdom of Solomon, 2 and I think like 7 through 11. All right, because these people put themselves in these positions, and now they use force to stay there. This is Wisdom of Solomon. They're militaries. They're police forces. They're militaries to keep their power, knowing that they're not legitimate powers. They're very well aware of that they're not legitimate. But this is Wisdom of Solomon 2 and 7, and it reads, Let us fill ourselves with costly wine and ornaments, and let no flower of the spring pass by us. Let us crown ourselves with rosebuds before they are withered. Let none of us go without his part of our voluptuousness. So getting the fat of the land. Like, I mean, how Bill Gates owns up all the farmland while we having food shortages all over the Americas, all over the West for that matter. All right. Let us leave tokens of our joyfulness in every place. They put statues of themselves, fabricate, put their faces on books and write themselves in the history in places where they were not, that sort of thing. All right, and then that's taught for generations. And when someone confronts it and shows you it's not true, people can't take it, man. You got the people start crying. Y'all was kings and shit. Those guys. All right, because I just had one of them on my Malcolm channel running his mouth. Oh yeah, I see y'all was kings and shit. And yeah, but you know what? We are gonna be kings and shit real soon. All right. Yeah. But it says, let none of us go without his part of our voluptuousness. Let us leave tokens of our joyfulness in every place, for this is our portion. Our lot is this. Let us oppress the poor righteous man. Let us not spare the widow, nor reverence the ancient gray hairs of the age. All right. Let our strength be the law of justice, for that which is feeble is found to be nothing worth. So it doesn't matter if you're right. All right. If this is your land, if you live here, if you're already a sovereign, they want it, it's theirs, and they're going to take it by force. All right. But there is a recompense coming for these actions. So with that, I'm going to give all praises, glory, and honor unto Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem, Rakah HaKodash, Wa Abba Babal, Kwam Yasharal, and see you on the next lesson. Shalom.